The rain pounded the rooftop, each drop a hammer against Eli's skull. He stood at the edge, toes curling over the ledge, the New York City skyline blurring into a gray smear through his tears. At 22, he'd decided this was the end because being himself felt like a crime too heavy to carry. The world below buzzed with life, indifferent to the weight crushing his chest. Eli had spent years hiding who he was, suffocating under his father's expectations and the small-town whispers that followed him to the city. Tonight, the secret he'd buried, his love for another man, had clawed its way out, and the shame was too much. He clutched the crumpled photo in his pocket, the one of him and Jamie, his little brother, taken last summer at Coney Island. Jamie, only 8, with his gap-toothed grin and boundless energy, was the one person who never judged him. But even Jamie couldn't fix this. Eli's fingers trembled as he let the photo slip, watching it flutter toward the street below. The wind howled, and he closed his eyes, ready to step forward. But Thena's small, desperate shout cut through the storm. Eli, no. He spun around, heart lurching. There was Jamie, soaked to the bone, his tiny frame shaking as he ran across the rooftop. How had he gotten here? Their apartment was 10 blocks away, and Jamie wasn't supposed to be out alone, especially not in a storm like this. Jamie, what are you doing here? Eli's voice cracked, torn between fear and guilt. Jamie didn't answer. He just barreled into Eli, wrapping his arms around his waist, his face pressed against Eli's jacket. You can't leave me, Jamie sobbed, his words muffled but fierce. You're my brother. Eli's knees buckled. He sank to the wet concrete, pulling Jamie close, the cold rain mixing with the warmth of his brother's trembling body. For the first time that night, the urge to jump faded, replaced by the weight of Jamie's trust. They'd always been a team, ever since their mom died 3 years ago. Their father, a construction foreman with a temper as hard as steel, had never been the same after her death. He drowned his grief in whiskey, leaving Eli to raise Jamie. Eli had been 16 when he became both brother and parent, teaching Jamie how to tie his shoes, make peanut butter sandwiches, and dodge their dad's bad days. But Jamie had his own struggles. A speech delay and trouble with fine motor skills meant he couldn't write or read like other kids his age. School was a battlefield, with teachers who didn't understand and classmates who mocked him. Yet Jamie never stopped smiling, never stopped drawing his messy, colorful pictures to show Eli what he couldn't say. Eli's secret, though, had been a heavier burden. Growing up in their small upstate town, he'd heard the slurs, seen the looks. Being gay wasn't just a sin to their father, it was a betrayal of everything he stood for. When Eli moved to the city for college, he thought he'd find freedom. Instead, he found fear. Fear of being seen, of being rejected, of losing the only family he had left. Then he met Noah. Noah was everything Eli wasn't: bold, unapologetic, with a laugh that could light up a room. They met in a literature class at NYU, bonding over dog-eared copies of Whitman and Wilde. Noah's confidence drew Eli in, and for the first time, he felt like he could breathe. They'd spend hours in coffee shops, talking about dreams, fears, and the future. Noah's hand brushing against his felt like a promise. But promises break. Last week, Noah had kissed him in Washington Square Park, right in front of a crowd. Eli panicked, pulling away, his heart racing with the fear of being exposed. The fight that followed was brutal. Noah accused him of being ashamed, of hiding who he was. If you can't love yourself, how can you love me? Noah had said before walking away. Eli hadn't slept since. The weight of Noah's words, mixed with years of guilt and his father's voice in his head, had driven him to this rooftop. He'd written a note, left it on his desk. I'm sorry, Jamie. I tried. Now, with Jamie clinging to him, Eli felt the note's words burn in his chest. He hadn't tried hard enough. Not for Jamie. Not for himself. Why'd you come here, buddy? Eli whispered, brushing wet hair from Jamie's forehead. Jamie pulled back, his eyes wide and fierce. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, thrusting it into Eli's hands. It was one of Jamie's drawing, some messy sketch of two stick figures. One tall, one small, holding hands under a bright yellow sun. That's us, Jamie said, his voice shaking but clear. You and me. Forever. Eli's throat tightened. He stared at the drawing, the uneven lines and smudged colors blurring through his tears. Jamie couldn't write, but this was his language. This was his way of saying what Eli had almost forgotten. They were enough for each other. The rain slowed, and the city lights began to pierce the clouds. Eli held Jamie tighter, the ledge behind him feeling farther away. He wasn't ready to fight for himself yet. But for Jamie, he'd try. The next morning, Eli woke to the smell of burnt toast and Jamie's off-key humming. They were back in their cramped Brooklyn apartment, the storm's echoes still lingering in Eli's mind. He lay on the couch, where he'd crashed after carrying a sleeping Jamie home, his brother's drawing tucked safely in his pocket. He couldn't shake the image of Jamie's face on that rooftop, small, scared, but defiant. It was a wake-up call, sharper than any alarm. Eli had to keep going, not just for himself, but for the kid who'd braved a storm to save him. Their apartment was a mess of mismatched furniture and unpaid bills, a far cry from the polished lofts of NYU students Eli envied. The walls were plastered with Jamie's drawings, bright, chaotic bursts of color that made the place feel alive. Eli's eyes landed on one of a superhero, cape flying, with a scrawled E on its chest. Jamie had made him a hero, even when Eli felt like anything but. Eli. Breakfast, Jamie called, waving a plate of charred toast smeared with jelly. Eli forced a smile, sitting up. Looks gourmet, bud. Jamie grinned, oblivious to the sarcasm, and plopped beside him. You okay now? He asked, his voice small but direct. Eli's chest tightened. He wanted to lie, to say everything was fine, but Jamie's eyes held him accountable. I'm trying, Jamie. I promise. That promise felt fragile, especially when Eli's phone buzzed with a text from Noah. Can we talk? I miss you. Eli stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the reply button. Noah's words stirred something, hope. Maybe. Or just the ache of what could have been. But the memory of their fight in the park, the fear of being seen, still burned. He set the phone down, unanswered. School was a blur that day. Eli sat through lectures, his mind drifting to Noah's smile, Jamie's drawing, and the ledge he'd almost stepped off. He avoided the usual coffee shop where he and Noah used to meet, taking the long way back to Brooklyn instead. The city felt louder, its pulse both overwhelming and grounding. When he picked Jamie up from school, the kid was quieter than usual, clutching his backpack like a shield. "What's wrong?" Eli asked, kneeling to meet his eyes. "Kids laughed at my drawing," Jamie mumbled. "Said it's dumb 'cause I can't write." Eli's heart sank. He knew that pain being mocked for who you are, for what you can't change. "They're wrong," he said fiercely. "Your drawings are better than words." "They're you." Jamie's lip trembled, but he nodded, slipping his hand into Eli's. They walked home, the city's noise fading into the background. Eli realized then that Jamie's struggles weren't so different from his own. They were both fighting to be seen, to be enough. That night, Eli sat at the kitchen table, staring at Noah's text again. He typed a reply, deleted it, then typed again, "I'm scared, but I want to try." He hit send before he could overthink it. Noah's response came fast, "Meet me tomorrow. Washington Square. Noon." Eli's stomach twisted, but he agreed. He owed it to himself and to Jamie to at least try. The next day, the park was alive with street musicians and students sprawled on the grass. Noah stood by the fountain, his dark curls catching the sunlight, his hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. When he saw Eli, his face lit up, but there was a cautious edge to his smile. "I didn't think you'd come," Noah said, his voice soft. "I almost didn't," Eli admitted. He glanced around, hyper-aware of the crowd, the eyes that might judge. "I'm still figuring this out." Noah nodded, stepping closer but not too close. "I shouldn't have pushed you. I just when I'm with you, I forget to be afraid. I want you to feel that too." Eli's throat tightened. He wanted that freedom, that ease. But years of hiding had built walls he didn't know how to tear down. "What if I can't?" he whispered. "Then we'll figure it out together," Noah said, his eyes steady. "No pressure. Just us." They sat on a bench, talking for hours about books, dreams, and the fears that kept Eli up at night. Noah didn't push for more than Eli could give. And for the first time, Eli felt like he could breathe in someone else's presence. When he got home, Jamie was waiting with a new drawing, a messy sketch of 3 stick figures under a rainbow. "Who's this?" Eli asked, pointing to the third figure. "Noah," Jamie said, grinning. "He makes you smile." Eli laughed, pulling Jamie into a hug. Maybe, just maybe, he could learn to smile without fear. Weeks passed, and Eli found a fragile rhythm. He and Noah met regularly, keeping things quiet: coffee dates, late-night walks, moments where Eli could feel himself unfolding, petal by petal. But the fear never fully left. Every public glance, every whispered conversation, felt like a spotlight on his secret. At home, Jamie was his anchor. The kids' drawings piled up, each one a burst of color and hope. Eli taped them to the fridge, a reminder of why he kept going. But their father's shadow loomed larger. He'd been working overtime, his moods darker, his patience thinner. Eli shielded Jamie as best he could, but the tension in their apartment was a tightrope. One evening, Eli came home to find their father, Tom, slumped at the kitchen table, a bottle of whiskey half empty beside him. Jamie was in his room. Door closed, a bad sign. "Where's your head at, boy?" Tom slurred, his eyes narrowing as Eli set his bag down. "Always sneaking around. Hiding something." Eli's stomach churned. "Just school, Dad. Long day." Tom snorted, taking a swig. "School don't make you look like you're carrying the world's sins." Eli bit his tongue, grabbing a glass of water to avoid a fight. But Tom's voice followed him. "You think I don't see it? The way you're always distracted. Always running off. What's his name?" The glass slipped from Eli's hand, shattering on the floor. His heart pounded. "What?" "You heard me," Tom growled, standing unsteadily. "I ain't stupid. You're my son, but you're acting like someone I don't know." Eli's mind raced. He wanted to deny it, to bury the truth deeper, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he turned and walked to Jamie's room, closing the door behind him. Jamie was curled on his bed, clutching a pillow. He yelled again. Jamie whispered, "Said I'm useless 'cause I can't write." Eli sat beside him, pulling him close. "He's wrong, Jamie. About you. About everything." But Tom's words clung to Eli like damp clothes. The next day, he met Noah at a diner. His nerves frayed. Noah noticed immediately. "What's going on?" he asked, his hand brushing Eli's across the table. Eli pulled back, glancing at the other customers. "My dad, he's starting to figure it out. I don't know what he'll do if he knows." Noah's face softened, but there was a fire in his eyes. "You don't have to face him alone. You've got me. And Jamie." Eli wanted to believe him, but the fear of losing everything is home. His brother kept him tethered to silence. "I can't risk Jamie," he said. "If Dad kicks me out, what happens to him?" Noah didn't have an answer, and that silence scared Eli more than anything. Days later, things unraveled. Eli was at school when his phone buzzed with a call from Jamie's teacher. "Jamie's in trouble," she said. "He got into a fight. You need to come." Eli rushed to the school, his heart in his throat. Jamie sat in the principal's office, a bruise blooming on his cheek, his eyes red from crying. He wouldn't stop, Jamie said, his voice shaking. "He called you a bad word. I hit him." Eli froze. The principal explained a kid had overheard Tom ranting about Eli at a parent-teacher night, calling him names Eli couldn't bear to repeat. The rumor spread, and Jamie, fierce in his loyalty, had lashed out. "I'm sorry," Jamie whispered as they walked home. "I just wanted to protect you." Eli's chest ached. He knelt, hugging Jamie tightly. "You don't need to fight my battles, buddy. But I'm so proud of you." That night, Eli lay awake, the weight of his choices crushing him. He couldn't keep hiding, but coming out felt like stepping into a storm with no shelter. Noah's texts glowed on his phone, offering comfort. But Eli needed more than words. He needed a plan. The next morning, he called a social worker he'd met through a campus support group. She listened as he poured out his fears about Tom, about Jamie, about losing everything. "There are options," she said. "Shelters, Programs for young adults with dependents. You're not alone. Eli hung up, his mind spinning. Moving out, starting over it was terrifying. But for the first time, it felt possible. He looked at Jamie, coloring at the table, and made a silent vow he'd build a life where they could both be free. Eli spent the next week researching, making calls, and meeting with the social worker. She connected him with a youth shelter in Manhattan that offered temporary housing for young adults and their siblings. It wasn't perfect shared rooms, strict rules, but it was a lifeline. Eli started saving every penny from his part-time bookstore job, hiding the cash in a sock under his mattress. Noah was there through it all, patient but persistent. They met in quiet corners of the city libraries, empty parks where Eli felt safe. Noah's presence was a balm, but Eli still flinched at the thought of being seen together in public. "You're carrying too much," Noah said one evening, as they sat on a bench in Central Park. "Let me help." Eli shook his head. "You don't get it. If I mess this up, Jamie pays the price." Noah's eyes softened. "I know. But you're not alone in this. I'm here, Eli. For both of you." Those words stuck with Eli, but so did his fear. At home, Tom's suspicions grew sharper. He'd started checking Eli's phone, questioning his late nights. Eli lied, saying he was studying, but the tension was a ticking bomb. One night, it exploded. Eli came home late, having lost track of time with Noah. Tom was waiting, his face red, a crumpled flyer from an LGBTQ plus campus event in his hand. He'd found it in Eli's bag. "What the hell is this?" Tom roared, slamming the flyer on the table. "You think you can bring this filth into my house?" Eli's heart stopped. He glanced at Jamie, who was peeking from the hallway, eyes wide with fear. "It's just a club, Dad," Eli said, his voice shaking. "It's not. Don't lie to me," Tom shouted, stepping closer. "I raised you better than this. You're disgusting." The word hit like a fist. Eli stood frozen, years of shame flooding back. But then he saw Jamie, clutching a drawing, his small body trembling. Something snapped in Eli. "I'm not disgusting," he said, his voice low but steady. "I'm your son. And I'm gay." The room went silent. Tom's face twisted, a mix of rage and disbelief. Before he could speak, Jamie ran forward, shoving his drawing into Tom's hands. It was a picture of their family, Tom, Eli, and Jamie, holding hands under a tree. "We're a family," Jamie said, his voice breaking. "You can't hate Eli." Tom stared at the drawing, his hands shaking. For a moment, Eli thought he saw something soften in his father's eyes. But then Tom crumpled the paper and threw it to the floor. "Get out," he said, his voice cold. "Both of you." Eli's world tilted. He grabbed Jamie's hand, pulling him toward their room. "Pack a bag," he whispered. "We're leaving." They moved fast, stuffing clothes and Jamie's drawings into a duffel. Eli's hands shook, but his mind was clear. He'd known this might happen, and he'd prepared. The shelter was waiting. As they slipped out, Tom stood in the living room, staring at the wall. He didn't stop them, didn't say a word. Eli's heart broke. But he kept moving, Jamie's hand in his. The shelter was crowded, the beds hard, but it was safe. Jamie clung to Eli that first night. His drawings spread across the cot like a shield. "Are we going to be okay?" he asked. Eli nodded, brushing tears from Jamie's cheek. "Yeah, buddy. We're going to be okay." The next day, Noah showed up with coffee and a bag of Jamie's favorite snacks. He didn't ask questions, just sat with them, his presence steady. Eli felt a flicker of hope, but the road ahead was daunting. He had to find a job, a real home, a way to keep Jamie in school. He started small, applying for better jobs, enrolling Jamie in a new school with a special education program. The shelter staff helped, connecting him with resources. But the weight of it all pressed down. And some nights, Eli wondered if he was strong enough. Then he'd look at Jamie's drawings, at the stick figures that always included him, and he'd find the will to keep going. Noah, too, became a constant helping with Jamie's homework, bringing takeout, making Eli laugh when he thought he'd forgotten how. One evening, as they ate pizza in the shelter's common room, Noah took Eli's hand under the table. For the first time, Eli didn't pull away. The shelter became a temporary home, but it wasn't easy. The noise of other families, the shared bathrooms, the constant uncertainty it wore on Eli. Yet Jamie adapted with a resilience that humbled him. The kid found joy in small things, a new set of crayons from a shelter volunteer, a game of checkers with Noah, a sunny afternoon in the courtyard. Eli landed a job at a small publishing house, editing manuscripts part-time. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He enrolled Jamie in a nearby school with a teacher who understood his needs. And slowly, Jamie's confidence grew. His drawings became more detailed, filled with stories he couldn't yet write. Noah was a constant, showing up with books for Jamie or a playlist to lift Eli's mood. Their relationship deepened, but Eli still hesitated to call it love. Love felt too big, too risky, when he was still rebuilding his life. One afternoon, Noah took them to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. Jamie ran ahead, chasing butterflies, while Eli and Noah walked the paths. "You're doing it. You know," Noah said, his voice warm. "You're building something real for you and Jamie." Eli shrugged, kicking a pebble. "Doesn't feel like it. Feels like I'm barely holding on." Noah stopped, turning to face him. "You're stronger than you think. And you're not alone." Eli met his gaze, and for a moment, the world felt steady. He wanted to kiss Noah, right there in the open. But the old fear crept in. Noah saw it, squeezing his hand. "When you're ready," he said softly. That night, Eli got a call from the social worker. An affordable apartment had opened UPA, small one-bedroom in Queens, subsidized for young families. It was a chance to start fresh. Eli's heart raced as he signed the lease, the weight of possibility both thrilling and terrifying. Moving day was chaotic. Noah helped carry boxes, while Jamie bounced around, taping his drawings to the bare walls. The apartment was tiny, with creaky floors and a leaky faucet. But it was theirs. Eli stood in the empty living room, Jamie's laughter echoing from the bedroom, and felt something he hadn't in years: home. But the past wasn't done with them. A week later, Eli found a letter in the mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, Tom's handwriting jagged but clear. I'm sorry. I don't understand. But I'm trying. Eli's hands shook as he read it. He didn't know if he could forgive Tom. Not yet. But the words cracked something open in him. He showed the letter to Jamie, who frowned, tracing the words he couldn't read. Does this mean Dad's not mad anymore? Jamie asked. I don't know, Eli said honestly. But it's a start. He didn't write back. Not yet. Instead, he focused on the present school for Jamie, work for him, and Noah, who was becoming a part of their little family. They started traditions, Friday movie nights, Sunday walks to the bodega for ice cream. Jamie's drawings filled the apartment, a gallery of their new life. One evening, Noah brought over a canvas and paints, a gift for Jamie. They spent hours painting together, laughing as paint smeared on their clothes. Jamie's canvas was a riot of colors, blues and reds swirling into a scene of three figures under a starry sky. Who's that? Eli asked, pointing to the third figure. You, me, and Noah, Jamie said, grinning. Our family. Eli's eyes stung. He looked at Noah, who was watching him with a quiet smile. For the first time, Eli felt like he could claim that word family without fear. He reached for Noah's hand, lacing their fingers together. Thank you, he whispered. Not just to Noah, but to Jamie, to the universe, for giving him a reason to stay. Life in the new apartment settled into a rhythm, fragile but hopeful. Eli's job at the publishing house became full-time, and Jamie's new school reported progress. His speech was clearer, his drawings more expressive. Noah was a fixture, his laughter filling the small space, his presence a steady anchor. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights, Eli woke in a cold sweat, the memory of the rooftop vivid in his mind. He'd check on Jamie, sleeping soundly with a crayon still clutched in his hand, and remind himself why he kept going. Noah noticed the shadows in Eli's eyes. One evening, as they washed dishes together, he said, "You don't talk about it." That night. But I'm here if you need to. Eli paused, hands submerged in soapy water. I don't know how, he admitted. It's like, if I talk about it, it'll pull me back there. Noah dried his hands, turning to face him. You don't have to go back. You're here now. With us. Eli nodded, but the fear lingered. He still hadn't responded to Tom's letter, unsure if he could face his father's attempt at reconciliation. The pain was too raw, the wounds too deep. Then came Jamie's school art show. Eli and Noah arrived early, helping Jamie set up his display collection of drawings that told their story, the rooftop, the shelter, their new home. Parents and teachers milled around, praising Jamie's work. But Eli noticed one figure in the crowd, Tom. He stood at the back, hands in his pockets, staring at Jamie's drawings. Eli's heart pounded. He hadn't seen his father since the night they left, and the sight of him now stirred a mix of anger and longing. Stay with Jamie, Eli whispered to Noah, then approached Tom. Dad, he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. Tom turned, his face lined with exhaustion. Eli, I saw the flyer at the library. Thought I'd come. Eli didn't know what to say. He wanted to yell, to demand answers. But Tom's eyes held something near regret. Maybe, or guilt? Jamie's doing good, Tom said, nodding toward the display. You both are. Yeah, Eli said, his throat tight. We're trying. Tom hesitated, then pulled a folded paper from his pocket, a copy of Jamie's family drawing, the one he'd crumpled that night. I kept it, he said. I don't understand you, Eli. But I don't want to lose you. Eli's chest ached. He didn't trust Tom. Not yet. But the words were a crack in the wall between them. We'll see, he said finally. For Jamie. Tom nodded. And for the first time, Eli saw his father cry. The art show was a success. Jamie beamed as his teacher praised his work, and Noah bought him a celebratory ice cream cone. Eli watched them, feeling the weight of his past lift. Just a little. Later, at home, Eli sat with Jamie, looking through his sketchbook. One drawing caught his eye, two brothers on a rooftop. A rainbow breaking through the clouds. That's us, Jamie said. We made it. Eli hugged him, tears falling. Yeah, buddy. We did. That night, Noah stayed over, curled up with Eli on the couch. They didn't talk about Tom or the future, just held each other. The quiet a comfort. Eli realized he was starting to believe in tomorrows again. Months passed, and the apartment became a true home. Eli hung fairy lights above Jamie's bed, turning his corner into a cozy nook. Jamie's drawings covered every wall, a testament to his growing confidence. Eli's job stabilized, and he even started taking night classes again, dreaming of a degree. Noah was there for it all, his love a quiet strength. They went on real dates now, movies, diners, even a pride event, where Eli held Noah's hand in public for the first time. His heart raced, but the world didn't end. Instead, it felt like it opened up. Tom reached out sporadically, sending letters or showing up at Jamie's school events. Eli kept him at arm's length, unsure if trust could be rebuilt. But Jamie, with his boundless heart, forgave easily, and Eli followed his lead, one cautious step at a time. One spring day, Noah suggested a trip to Coney Island, a callback to the photo Eli had nearly lost that night on the rooftop. They rode the Ferris wheel, Jamie squealing between them, the ocean sparkling below. Eli looked at Noah, then at Jamie, and felt a peace he hadn't known was possible. At the boardwalk, Jamie tugged them toward a caricature artist. The artist sketched them, Eli and Noah laughing, Jamie grinning with a cotton candy in hand. When it was done, Jamie pointed to the drawing. That's us. Forever. Eli's eyes stung. He saw himself in that sketch, not the scared kid on the rooftop, but a man who'd fought for his family, his love, his life. Back home, Eli framed the caricature, hanging it beside Jamie's drawings. He was starting to see himself the way Jamie did, as a hero, not a failure. One night, as they ate dinner, Noah brought up the future. What do you want, Eli? 5 years from now. Eli paused, the question heavy but not suffocating. I want Jamie to be happy. I want us to be together, you, me, him. I want to stop being afraid. Noah smiled, squeezing his hand. You're getting there. Eli nodded, believing it. He wasn't free of fear, but he was learning to live with it. to let love outweigh it. Jamie's laughter. Noah's warmth. The life they were building, it was enough. A year later, Eli stood in their apartment, now filled with furniture they'd picked out together, a thrift store couch, a wobbly table, Jamie's art everywhere. It was Jamie's 9th birthday, and the place was alive with laughter. Noah had baked a lopsided cake, and a few friends from the shelter and school filled the room, their voices blending into a joyful chaos. Tom showed up, hesitant at the door with a gift for Jamie, a sketchbook and colored pencils. Eli let him in, their conversation still awkward but less sharp. Tom was trying, attending meetings, asking questions. Eli didn't know if they'd ever be close again. But for Jamie, he'd keep the door open. As the party wound down, Jamie tugged Eli and Noah to the living room, handing them a new drawing. It was their family: Eli, Noah, Jamie, and even Tom, standing under a bright blue sky. "This is us," Jamie said, his voice clear and proud. "All of us." Eli's heart swelled. Jamie, who couldn't write, had saved him with his pictures, his love, his unyielding belief in their bond. That night on the rooftop felt like a lifetime ago, a memory softened by the life they'd built. Later, after Jamie was asleep, Eli and Noah sat on the fire escape, the city humming below. "I love you," Eli said, the words coming easily now. Noah grinned, kissing him softly. "I love you too." Eli looked out at the skyline, no longer a blur of pain, but a canvas of possibility. He thought of the rooftop, of Jamie's small hand pulling him back, of the drawings that told their story. He'd been ready to end his life, but Jamie and Noah, and his own stubborn heart, had shown him how to begin again. The stars above were faint, drowned out by city lights, but Eli saw them anyway. They were enough. He was enough.